A reduction in the wire snails that we collect on a monthly basis. And this is basically attributed to our intense patrols.
Over the years, this courageous team of anti-poachers has reduced poaching to almost zero.
Mimi naitwa Stephen Olereso. Nimefanya kazi miaka 16 sasa. Kuanzia miaka 2002. Hao wanadamu ni wenye utua sana inaogofya ni wale wenye wanaenda kama ndovu. Wanatumia kama bunduki. Sasa hiyo ndio huwa inakuanga hatari sana kwa sisi.
As a result of the global pandemic and the massive reduction in tourist revenue, the Mara Triangle is facing a financial crisis. They need your help if they are to continue their ability to protect this magical land.
I got into wildlife filmmaking because of a passion for nature and a notion that I could make a difference. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun. A couple of times per week, we receive some very heartfelt messages from viewers telling us about how WildEarth has made a difference in their life, whether it's helped them through a difficult period or simply helped them to reconnect with nature. I think that's why we do what we do.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We're greeted by that beautiful sunrise just above the tree line there. In the distance, you can also see the mountains there. An absolutely stunning morning here. As we left the lodge this morning, we were lucky enough to hear some lions were found not too far from here. So I think that might just be our plan for start this morning. They've been a little bit tricky to find the last couple of days, so really glad they've been managed to be relocated again. But before we head there, we're going to take a couple of seconds to enjoy the sunrise. Welcome aboard your live safari in the African bush. Welcome back, everyone, and have a look at that sunrise. Absolutely stunning. The sun just peering through those clouds there in the distance. My name is Dean, and behind the camera we've got Odie. So we just stopped on the top of this hill here as we were heading down on our way towards the lions. We're going to see if we can join up with them this morning. But like I said, before we go there, we're just going to take in this sunrise for a little bit and make our way down the road. Oh. Hold on, this might be a little bit bumpy. Yep. You're 100% right, Danny. It was an absolutely stunning sunrise. Very lucky to see it every morning here. Nice and cool. You can start to feel the seasons changing. Days are shorter, mornings are a little bit cooler, as are the evenings. It always amazes me how quick that sun actually rises. One moment it's just above the horizon, the next it's already quite high up in the sky. I always say it when I'm driving, that in the mornings, the morning's my favourite part of the drive, and then I have a lovely sunset like we had yesterday, and I say the evening's my favourite part. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, the lions were found not too far from here. But before we head in that direction, there's just a watering hole I want to have a look at. Take a little bit of a detour and just see what we might come across along the way. As am I, Nancy. I am also looking forward to some cats this morning, and they've been a little bit difficult to find over the last couple of days. The one pride was right on top of a mountain or a koppie, and the other pride were quite far into a thick drainage line. And it sounds like they're in an open area this morning. Hopefully they're still there by the time we get there. I'm not sure what or how many members of the Southern Pride are with them this morning. We might have some male lions, we might have some of the females, possibly even some of the cubs. Not sure yet. We will have to see once we get there. Just hold on, a little bit bumpy. Oh, covered in spider webs here. Elizabeth, you're asking how many lion prides there are in Phinda. It's a really good question. There are 3 prides on Phinda right now. There's the northern pride. There's also a pride here where we are in the south. And there's also a pride towards the eastern side of the reserve. So 3 in total. And I know at least for the ones... Oh, hyena! Oh, we just spotted it. There it goes. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if Odie's going to manage to catch him. Ah, just started off there into the bush. I'm going to try and reverse to see if he might pop out just behind us. Oh, there he goes. Goes off to the right. He might dart off to the front here. Let's just keep an eye on the bush here. There he is. I can just see him darting. There he's run off. He's just through there. Yeah, I think he's just made a run off into the bush there. Jeez. What a start to the day. Looks like that hyena's now gone off into the thicket. I think we might have started a little bit. What a treat that was. And not that far from the road, actually, only a couple of meters. Yeah, well, let's carry on. Lucy Lou, yeah, so you say you've never seen a hyena on Phinda before. So we're in the southern part, and there's quite a lot less hyenas here than there are in the northern part. But definitely quite, I would say, almost a rare-ish sighting here in the southern part of Phinda. Definitely sort of broad day like this in the morning, not the most common animal to see. But funny enough, on this exact road we're going down, about 2 months ago, I came across a hyena walking up the road. What a special sighting that was. A short one, but always special to see, nevertheless. We do think there is a new den somewhere in the south. I have made it my mission to find it. But it turns out it's not as easy as it sounds. They do like these thick, less driven roads, less driven. Oh, there you go. Sorry, as I mentioned, we're covered in spider webs here. There you go. You can see there's a couple more spider webs across the tracker's seat there in front also. Just crossing through one of the drainage lines now. We might actually just take a second just to listen to the bird life here. listening to all the birds in the morning. Yeah, the somber greenbill. Oh, lovely. Dark-capped bulbuls. And this tree, a stunning tree, a red ivory. Always find there's so much life in the drainage line. As if everything sort of congregates here. Bit of a tambueti thicket also here. Just see the dark trunks of the tambueti tree. Really beautiful. Look at that. Got that characteristic block or chunky bark on the tambueti there. Oh, there's a new shoot coming out there. So you often find areas like this where they congregate the tambueti trees. Ula, you're asking what is my favorite thing about being on Phinda? Phew. I'd probably say having access to all the conservation work we have here. We've got a lot of projects, you know, whether it be with the pangolin, whether it's with the rhino. So I'd probably say just having access and being at almost at the forefront of all the conservation work we do here. That would probably be my favorite. And also, you know, we're very fortunate. We've got 7 different biomes on the reserve itself. So it doesn't take long for you to drive and you'll be in a completely different area, which is stunning. We're very lucky we have that here. So I'd probably say that the conservation work in the different biomes and obviously all the animals that supports each biome. That would probably be my favorite thing about being here on Phinda. I think we're going to carry on up the road. Like I said, we're heading towards the watering hole. Just going to try and find out what those lions are up to.
This is moving up to the south, the middle, and Mexican surface. No sign that I will keep going to further for adherence.
So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to find out exactly where those lions are and how it works here on Phinda. We limit the amount of vehicles per sighting. So with lions, we would only allow 3 vehicles at a time. That's obviously just to not put any unnecessary pressure on the animal. And especially if they are in a thicker area, you know, you don't want tons of vehicles surrounding it, damaging the bush, and like I said, putting extra pressure on the animal. So we limit it to 3 vehicles with the lions. Same with cheetah, but only 2 with leopard. So what I'm going to do is just find out if we can join that rotation, as we say. See if there's a space for us. Morning stations. What is the rotation for the animals, Old Man Gate, for Dean?
Dean, stand by. Ross, come back for this. Deborah. Right, for Deborah.
This is only a seasonal pan or watering hole. It's not, it definitely doesn't have this much water throughout the year.
There's 3 here at the moment. I think number one available.
Thanks, Dev. I'll take standby one in the meantime. If Ross does join the rotation, I'll move out. This watering hole's actually got a special place in my heart. It was during my training, the first place I walked on foot up to Hyena. I think we're going to carry on. Andrew, you're asking why did I choose to become a guide? Because I noticed in my previous career I was working almost every day, just so I could spend a couple of days in the bush. I then decided, why work on a job to get 3 days in the bush when I could turn being in the bush into my job? Also, not to mention, my girlfriend was a ranger here before I got here, so I joined her. So I have signal all around the reserve, hoping it sticks with us.
Please stand by for if anyone is still interested on these lines at Old Main Gate.
Joel, for Dean, I just wanted to find out if I'm still standby one. And I'm in.
We don't, can give me a couple to start making away. They mobile now doing the copy south of that last position, Old Main Gate.
Oh, elephant. Copy. How is that? Literally in a kilometre, hyena, and as we came up, an elephant. And I actually think that is one of the tusker elephants that we've just got from Tembe Elephant Park. What a beaut. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer before he moves off. He's just going over the crest there. Station south, a single elephant bull mobile east from the junction in the Tumble. I think while we try and join up with this elephant, let's find out what the weather's doing in the other places.
Good morning and welcome to WildEarth. We are at Prrivate's Eco Training. At the moment we started our little walk and see what we can find. As normal, we like to start with little pans like the one in the background from us. So, my name is JP LaRue and behind the camera we've got Johan. So for the morning we're going to walk an area which is known as Leadwood Dam, and from there we're going to see what we can find. As general, we like to start with small little water holes, see which tracks we can find, and from there on decide if we can track and trail the animal, and hopefully we're going to locate them. I'm just going to walk down to this little pad and go and see what has happened over here during the evening. Good morning, Annie, and welcome to the show. I 100% agree with you. I love water holes or any form of water body. If it's an ocean, a pan, a little dam, or a lake, they all are areas that brings tranquility for me. Water holes are often places where animals come to drink. It provides them with an essential lifeline. It's also sometimes a place where life gets taken. As predators also wisen up and use water holes quite often to ambush their chosen prey animals. We especially see this behavior to be more typical in the winter months. There's a number of areas where I've worked in the past where lions just become so lazy that they know that they can just wait at the water because it's the only water body and that the animals are then forced to come and drink. And that's normally where they will ambush them. Good morning, Peter, and welcome to the show. The animals that often come and drink here is quite often in Pala. We also have noticed that there's quite a large amount of other animals that will come in. We also find that warthog as well as buffalo will come to this little pan quite often. Just going to have a quick look up here at what tracks we can find. There's a number of different tracks that we see over here. There's one right over here, which indicates that it's in Pala, which is almost heart-shaped, roughly 5 centimeters in length. And we also find that it's got fairly straight outer edges. And another one that we have over here, which is much more rounded in appearance. This is warthog, which appears round in the front as well as round in the back. As if we've walked over here and continue, it's most likely warthog, and it's also been using these little places of wallow over a period of time. They like to get themselves covered with mud and then go and scratch themselves somewhere on a rubbing post. A few days ago, we also had a number of buffalo that came to drink over here. Just going to see if I can find any of their tracks. It seems that other animals have trampled these out already. For those of you that haven't joined the show before and for the first time having a look at a pan, these pans are fascinating little places. And as mentioned before, they are often formed just by a simple footprint which was left by an elephant. And continuously they get churned out by animals coming to wallow.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Tswalu. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with WildEarth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Tswalu's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Graham, I'm just going to see, there's a very good place. I want to see if we can get good signal from there. That's where I'd like to.
Welcome to dawn in the African bush.
How cool is this? Can you believe it?
Those cubs are now only 10 feet from us. Unbelievable.
Elephants chasing wild dogs chasing elephants. Pandemonium!
Watching how WildEarth has grown since 2007 has been truly remarkable. On the 27th of April this year, WildEarth will be turning 14, and we would love to hear from you. Please send us your own special birthday message, which we can share with the rest of the WildEarth family. Maybe you can tell us why you started watching WildEarth, what WildEarth means to you, or you could just send us a very happy birthday. Don't forget, when you want to film yourself, to hold your phone sideways to get the best angle. When you are ready, you can email your videos through to birthday@wildearth.tv.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for WildEarth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on WildEarth.
Good morning and welcome back. We're still at our little waterhole and investigating the tracks around the waterhole and see who came to visit last night. One of the other animals that we found that came to have a drink over here is a spotted hyena. And once again, there we can see the track. So here are typical banana-shaped or kidney-shaped toes and the nail impression that's left in the mud. And our back pad with 2 lobes at the back. There's our footprint right over there from the spotted hyena. And most likely, possibly ate something, came for a drink, and then from there on moved off. Hyenas can cover quite a lot of ground at night time in search of food or in an attempt to try and steal something from somebody else to eat. Good morning, Alex. With regards to your question, if I can get sick from it, they are adapted to be able to deal with water and a large amount of different bacteria that goes through their stomach, which we won't be able to deal with. So therefore, as humans, if we are lost in a natural environment, we tend to either have to use a water purification tablet or boil the water to make sure that we kill all the germs and bacteria inside it before we can consume it. A few years ago, we were on a survival course, and we came to a very similar looking little can like this. And we were in need of a cup of coffee that morning, and it was the only water body which we could locate. We eventually boiled it. We put a purification tablet in it just for extra measure, and we made some wonderful cups of coffee at that point. It must definitely be the coffee with the thickest consistency I've ever had in my life. We also do find quite often that water bodies can become quite toxic with bacteria, especially when we've got hippopotamus that occurs in those water bodies, as that they release large amounts of feces into the water. That also leads to very toxic algal blooms, which can happen in areas, and this can potentially kill animals. Coming back to these little water bodies, they also become important homes for a number of other insects as well as reptiles. Quite often we do find terrapins that are hiding in these little water holes, and when the water hole dries up and there's no more water, they'll often dig themselves into the mud. In the meanwhile, we're going to continue our walk, see what we can find, and hand you over to Dean, who's currently bumbling around.
Welcome back everyone to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Started some WildEarth full of energy this morning, nice and cool. So we've left that elephant, he's cut off to the side here into one of the thicker blocks. We are going to carry on with our original plan, which was to try and find those lions again. Head in that direction, but as you've seen this morning, you just don't know what the bush is going to throw at you. We've already had a brief visual of a hyena and a big elephant, so we just don't know what's around the next corner, which is part of the excitement and the beauty of being here. It's very so 9 o'clock in the morning, the times we do our drives. There's an impala running down the road there. It's a single male impala, ram. So I do the morning drives and I always come back and say, geez, the morning's my favorite time. And then I do the evening drives and I say the evening drives are my favorite time. So each time of day has got its own little flair. But yeah, very much on what you're looking for and personal preference. You can even go out in the middle of the day and you just don't know what you'll find. It has its own beauty. Look at impala's just ran off. So there's quite a big watering hole to our right over here, to where the camera is facing. And I was wondering if that elephant might actually head towards there at some point. Maybe as it starts to warm up, he might go there for a drink. So we'll keep an eye on this area. Maybe make a turn here in a bit. I think let's carry on. No, not as far as I'm aware. Caracals aren't found on Phinda. I haven't seen one. That being said, I haven't been here for many years. I've only been here about a year and a half. But yeah, they're not found in this area as far as I'm aware. And if so, I think they're extremely rare. Oh, some Nyalas darting off. Station control of the animals around Old Main Gate Pan for Dean.
Thank you, as said.
Copy. Thanks, Dave. Tommy's asking, do the lion prides ever mix on Phinda? Generally not. So that's why they occupy certain areas on the reserve. So like I said, you've got a pride here in the south, and you've also then got a pride in the north, and then again on the eastern side. And they have their own sort of set territories. The males then tend to roam sort of between the areas a little bit, but the males in the north don't come down as far south as to go into the males in the south territory. They've come close, but at least while I've been here, they've never actually sort of joined up or anything like that. I think there would be quite a big fight if they were to join up. There's a coalition of two males in the north, and then there's two males here in the south, and then the eastern part also. So the males definitely would not mix. It would be quite a big fight if they were to, and then the pride itself, they don't mix. So they stick to their own areas. However, though, the prides often do break up. So you might find a lioness or maybe two lionesses will break off from the pride and stay away for a bit and do their own thing, and then at some point they'll all join up, and it's quite a loose dynamic. So that's why I was saying earlier, I'm actually not sure how many lions there are in this area. Whether it'll be quite a large part of the pride or a single lioness, we will soon find out. BC asking, when do few lines start to, it's generally from about 3 years onwards, about 3 to 4, they might look to stop mating, maybe a bit older, actually about from 4 years onwards. So we're going to go through another drainage line here. This might lose a bit of signal, hopefully not. We've got to cross it to get towards the area of those lines.
The lines are open again. Okay. Can I join the rotation? Confirm you can take standby 1. There's D's ranking as well. Let's start with an update. There is now 1 sub-adult female that's joined the cycle.
Ross for Dean, you go ahead of me.
Sabi, responding from Vervet. I'm leaving the male and the west off now.
We're now actually heading back towards the direction of the lodge. It's just on the Phinda Mountain Lodge, just on top of the mountain over there. Sorry about the bumps, the bumpy road. You'll see the lodge as we come up the top here. And then we're going to cut off to our right, head down one of the more sort of main roads. Jessica, you're asking a really cool question. Do male lions also hunt? They most definitely do. They are not. That's the best way to put it. I would suppose they are a little bit impaired by a few things. So, obviously, especially the male lions in their prime, have got that big, dark mane. So, obviously, it being a darker color, black color, it's not as well camouflaged. So it gives their position away a little bit easier. Obviously you can imagine the heat that would generate on a hot day like that. So it does sort of put them at a bit of a disadvantage, but nevertheless they are very capable, obviously being very strong, very capable of hunting themselves. And you'll often find older males that have been pushed out of a pride or don't have a territory on their own and aren't able to join up with the pride themselves will actually do a lot of the hunting on their own. So yes, very capable, but if the females were to make a kill, the resident males would often then push in there and take over. So we're not too far from those lines now, but I think we're going to carry on down this road and see if we can find them again.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the WildEarth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next WildEarth drive.
Welcome back everyone to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We are slowly getting to the area where those lions were last seen. There are a few other vehicles already there. We're just waiting for our turn to join that sighting. As I mentioned earlier, we only have 3 vehicles at a time with lions and cheetah and 2 with leopard. Just so we don't put any extra pressure, we obviously try our best to have as little impact on all the animals and the bush as we can. So we found 3 is the number where everyone is able to get a good view and it doesn't put any pressure on the animals themselves. So as soon as we are called into that sighting, we will join up with them. But in the meantime, we'll just have a break over here and take in some of the views around us. There's a beautiful mountain over here and also in the distance another lovely range of mountains there. So as I mentioned, it was quite tricky over the last couple of days to find the lions, and in fact it wasn't the last couple of days, but before, they've been right on top of this mountain for close to like 3 or 4 days, and we obviously can't get right to the top there where they were, so it was a little bit tricky. In fact, I actually wonder, there's a couple of baboons right on the top there keeping a watchful eye out. So to the right of where those baboons are, right in the bottom here, are actually where the lions were last seen. So I'm wondering if they're also just keeping an eye on them. So yes, you just go with the name again. John, you're asking, are there any animals that live on the mountain? There are, definitely. So as you can see, there are baboons there, resident baboons. They stick around in this mountain range here. There's also a couple of clip springers. And there is a leopard also in the area. Quite crazy to think you'd have baboons and leopards sort of in one area. But yes, there are definitely animals that live on the mountain. Let's see how those Baboons are dancing around on the rocks there, going up and down, especially the young ones, is always full of energy. And notice how that one right on the top there, pretty much facing the sun. The nights are starting to get a little bit cooler, and so the sun is definitely welcomed in the morning. So they would be sitting on the top there, soaking up that sun, trying to warm up. Sorry, Boxy, the signal isn't the greatest. I couldn't get your question exactly there. So let me try and move on. How many? Boxy, you're asking... Great question, Boxy, as always. You're asking how big is a baboon troop? It varies from area to area. You can go from, upwards of, maybe 15 up to sometimes more than 50, 60. I know when I was growing up in a small little town in Botswana, we often had these copies here, and it's very similar to this one. And you would see, geez, up to like 60, maybe 70 baboons together. I think it's very much on the area, sort of what the area can support. But great question. Some pile off to our right here.
You can take standby one.
Roscoe for Dean Ross. Ross for Dean Ross. Sorry, Dev, I've been radioed out. Is there any changes to that rotation?
You can make your way to the third.
Copy. Thanks, Dev. Just go again with that exact position.
Main road, Tamacos boundary.
Copy. Thanks, Dev. Right, so we can now actually join this line sighting. So like I said, there's baboons over there, and to the right, somewhere over here are the lions. Oh, there's actually one lion walking down the road right now. Gerald, you're asking what other predators do we have on Phinda? This morning we saw that hyena. We've got both hyena. Oh, just hold on with that question. It looks like this young one's actually going to pounce on this subadult. Let's have a look what he's going to do there. Oh. Young ones, as I was saying earlier, always full of energy. Gerald, we've got cheetah. All sorts of predators. We've got cheetah. There you can hear the baboon's alarm calling. Cheetah, leopard, lion, and that would probably do it for the cats. And then, like I mentioned, we've got hyenas. amongst some of the larger carnivores. Those lions now slowly making their way through the grass, and so far I can only see the two subadult lions. I'm sure Mom isn't too far away. In the background there you can just hear the baboons starting to call. I think let us go round and join up onto, actually I see they're standing still. Just wanted to see where and what direction these lions were going to actually head and where the rest of them are. Oh, there I can see Mom just over there. I think. Let's go around, see if we can get a closer view. And you're asking, do lions and lionesses have the same life expectancy? I assume you mean males and females? They don't. So males generally live a little bit less. Sorry, lionesses will live a little bit longer. Generally, males will live around about 10 to 12 years in the wild, and then females upwards of probably around 14, generally to about 15. So just a little bit longer than males would. Let's see. I'm just taking in, trying to find that little bit of shade. Oh, a bit of a cough from one of the lions there. So as far as I can tell, it's just the one lioness and her 3 cubs. Right in the middle of this grassy area. Still hear those baboons off to our left here, giving alarm calls. is exactly what I was talking about earlier in terms of the pride sort of breaking up and joining up again. There's another female in this area that has 4 younger cubs. These cubs are only about a year. And they often join up and also go their own way. Let me go forward, see if we can get a better view. JB, you're asking, do lions ever hunt baboons? I think it's definitely not a common sighting to see lions hunting baboons. Baboons obviously very quick to flee and are able to go right up to the top of the trees, and where lions would be a little bit more limited in that sense. So they wouldn't actively hunt baboons. But definitely if they're close enough to a baboon and thought they could catch it, they definitely would go for them. I know leopards often catch baboons. But then again, leopards being a little bit more adapted to climbing trees, so not so limited in that way. But no, they wouldn't actively hunt baboons. I suppose it's just more of an irritant. As you heard earlier, the baboons were giving some alarm calls at the top of the mountain there. Now you can imagine if these lions were in an open area like this with this grass, they could stalk right up to, let's say, an impala without being seen if they got the wind in their favor. But all it takes is a baboon at the top of the mountain there to give off an alarm call, and that would give away the lion's position. So you can imagine how the lions would rather not have the baboons around. Oh, there's one of the cubs starting to move. No, decided not to move towards that tree. There's the lioness grooming herself at the back. She's got a little bit of a scar on her shoulder there. You can hear the baboons as this lioness started moving. Alarm calling. There, oh, have a look how they're all standing up. They will definitely be keeping an eye on these lions here. But like I said, they wouldn't actively hunt them. Just gauging the condition of this lioness, if you look just in front of her back legs, you can see how there's a bit of an indent. I don't think they're starving. I think they probably had a kill, if not yesterday, the day before. Now that it's warming up, I don't think they would do much more than rest for most of the day and look to do something later on this afternoon. I definitely think they'll try and either hunt this evening, if not this evening, some stage early tomorrow, I'm sure. This lioness having her 3 cubs would definitely keep her busy. Yeah, you can see how these lions are panting. It's quite warm. Definitely warming up nicely now. Oh, Mom's lying completely flatter. Kelly asking, at what age are they referred to as subadults? So generally, I would say from about maybe about 8 months to about a year and a half, 2 years, I would say they're still referred to as subadults. Maybe even a little bit less, probably about a year and a half. And then from about 2 years onwards, I wouldn't refer to them as subadults anymore. So these 3 lions are only about a year, so still referred to as subadults. Definitely see the size difference between the subadults and the full-grown lion. Especially what I notice is the size of the head. The lioness's head is a lot bigger. It's quite interesting to imagine the distance these lions could have covered last night, because they weren't in the southern part at all yesterday. They were quite far on the eastern side of the reserve, so they've come all the way from the other side through here, right to where we are now. Okay, purple crested taraka in the background also. Mikanova is asking, are the 3 prides on Phinda dominated by the same male lions? No, so we've got 2 coalitions, and there's one in the north, a coalition of 2 brothers there, and then we've also got a coalition of 2 males in the south. The 2 males in the south generally go from the eastern side, from the pride on the east, and also cover then the southern part. And like I was talking about earlier, they don't cross paths, at least while I've been here they haven't. They've come close, where we actually thought there was going to be a bit of a conflict, but there were no signs of a conflict, so they don't cross paths. It seems to be there's more than enough area to stay out of each other's way. I think for now we will stick with these lions, see if they get up to anything. I don't think they will. I think it's quite warm. They might just find another shady spot, but we'll stick with them a bit longer. But for now, let's send you guys over to JP.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We've just been walking a short distance and located in a number of birds, which was forming a small bird party. It seems as if they now started moving up. But in the distance, on the top of a tree, we've got a hornbill that's still remaining in the group. There's a number of different hornbill species which we have in this area, and most of them can be identified by the coloration of their bill. This one, that's in the top of there with its red bill resembling a chili pepper, is a red-billed hornbill. Whether yellow-billed hornbill or southern yellow billed hornbill as it's known, has got a big bright yellow bill. A second,
A third species which we find in this area is the African grey hornbill, which also has an all-grey bill, which makes it fairly easy to separate the three from one another. I find the nesting behaviour of these birds quite fascinating, as that they will often use natural rot holes in the side of a tree to nest inside. And this is then sealed up with a female on the inside, where she'll lose her feathers. Those feathers then will act as an insulator inside the nest. By the time that she has regrown all the feathers, she will break out and the chicks will reseal the nest, and then both male and female will assist with feeding the chicks. Another feature that I find quite fascinating about them is where they take millipedes, which has got a large amount of toxins, and they encase them with feces and mud on the nest entrance. And this then acts as a chemical detergent to keep potential parasites away from the nest. Good morning, Alison. To answer your question, is there any birds that are herbivores? Mouse birds quite often feed on leaves and leaf material, which has actually got a very low quality of in terms of nutritional value for them. However, they have evolved strategies to digest that, and they've also evolved strategies where they can increase their body temperature and be more consistent. One of those strategies is to almost go into a state of torpor, where they only use the necessary energy that they need and shut down the rest of the uses. We also find quite often that they will huddle together in groups so that they can share one another's body heat during the cold nights. Good morning, Zach, and welcome to the show. Just like you, I also enjoy bird sightings. There's always something interesting that's happening, and they're always doing something. And you can virtually go anywhere in the world and enjoy to go and watch birds. Right through from your own garden up to the largest of conservation areas. Over the years, birding has actually encouraged me to travel more often to go and see new birds, but in the same breath, it's also allowed me to experience new habitats and learn about those environments. We're going to continue our little walk around here, see what we can find.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Tswalu. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with WildEarth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Tswalu's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature. For many years, WildEarth has taken viewers from around the world to the Mara Triangle, a place of majestic beauty and abundant wildlife. But it wasn't always like this. Before 2001, it was infested with poachers. Illegal harvesting and hunting was rife. Now the situation couldn't be more different. The hard work and dedication of the Mara Conservancy has revolutionized this magical land. But now, the loss of revenue from tourism has created a grave crisis. The Mara Conservancy needs help if they are to continue protecting the reserve and supporting the local communities whose livelihood depend on its survival.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We've just arrived at Leopard Dam and scouring the area to see what we can find. But in the meanwhile, we would like to provide you with the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of the dam and to listen to all the different sounds that nature has to offer. We're going to continue our walk and see what we can find around the dam. But in the meanwhile, we're going to send you to Dean, that's currently enjoying a group of lions.
Welcome back everyone to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We're still with these lions here. I still trying to stay in the shade of this saffron tree here, and I don't know how much longer they're going to have shade. The sun is rising quite quickly and that shade is just becoming less and less. And lioness is just on the edge of what is left of that shade. I'm sure at some point she's going to get up, and if not move into a more shady area, she might just move back closer towards the trunk of the tree. Hear the lemon-breasted canaries in the background. And of course the Cape turtle dove, classic bushveld sound, just off to our left of here. Those baboons also look like they've seen enough and they've moved off. Jackson's asking, will a lion ever kill another predator's cub? Most definitely, Jackson. In fact, they'll actually kill another predator. So they definitely would. It's obviously to eliminate any other competition. So it's one of the main reasons why things like leopard are so good at stashing away their cubs and covering up the scent, especially with leopards. They'll often move their cubs from denning site to denning site, just so it doesn't attract any more attention than necessary. So I know the other day I was with the leopard and it absolutely reeked of a carcass, and what it was actually doing, it rolled in an old buffalo carcass just to mask its own scent and the scent of the cubs. So when it goes back to the den, the only smell that would be in the area would be a carcass, a very old rotten carcass, nothing that would attract another predator like a lion. For that very reason, that if a lion was to find those cubs, it would definitely kill those cubs to eliminate any competition, as would a leopard if it found lion cubs. So you'll see also, a bit difficult to see from here, but you could sometimes see spots on the younger lion cubs. You can see these little spots on the arms and the legs. So the reason they have those spots is so they can camouflage a little bit yet better when they are younger. You can imagine in the grass how those spots would just help them blend in a little bit better. The same way cheetahs have that mane that runs down from their head all the way to their back when they're very young. Like a mane of fluffy, light-coloured hair. So that when they are stashed away in the grass, all you would see is just a fluff, a yellow fluff, which blends in really well, especially in the drier grass. When it's green, probably not as much, but definitely when it's at this stage, in the dry seasons and open savannas, it really blends in well. For that very reason, just so they're not found when they're very young and vulnerable. These lions have actually positioned themselves in a really good position here. They're on the side of a mountain here, and off to our right, there's that mountain where the baboons were. And it runs down all the way into quite a big catchment area. And at the bottom there's a big watering hole. But on the side of the mountain here, they've got a really good view of the area here. I think though, for now, we're gonna move on. We're gonna let these lions relax and enjoy the little bit of shade that's left, and we're gonna see what else we can find. But for now, you're going over to JP, who's heading to a watering hole.
Good morning and welcome back. We're still at Leopard Dam. At the moment, it's still very quiet with regards to animals, but we're still enjoying the birds and a number of different tracks that we are looking at. And one of the tracks that we found over here belongs to a vervet monkey. And if we look closer, over here is the main pad of a foot, and over here it makes a deep V at the back end of a foot. We've always used this characteristic to separate it from baboons, which has a slightly larger track and has much more of a unique pattern at the back end of the pad. We almost look like a B, what we always say stands for baboon, while V stands for vervet monkey. One of the defining features of primates and their tracks is that they've got an opposable thumb, and right over here we can see the left thumb marking in the ground. Over here, much fainter, is a right foot, which is not so prominent. So one of the other telltale signs which we can also always look for when monkeys have been on the ground is these drag marks of their tail, which you can see over here. I quite enjoy vervet monkeys. They're incredibly playful, and they also quite often show a large number of human-like characteristics in their behavior. But they can also be incredibly naughty at times, especially at areas where there's food that's often left out. And once they get into a house, they can create an absolute mess out of it. I find them also quite fascinating in terms of how they often will respond to the presence of potential predators in the area. And vervet monkeys have often been one of the main things that has indicated that there's a leopard within an area and provided myself and my guest with the opportunity to view these beautiful predators. They've got a wide range of different calls, which is also used to identify specific threats. We also find with vervet monkeys that they tend to spend a lot more time on the ground compared to other monkey species, such as the Simango monkey, which we'll find down in Phinda and the forested habitats, and against the Drakensberg's Hauptmann's mountain forests. They're also slightly smaller than the Simango monkey. Good morning, Kelly. With regards to your question if animals respond to the alarm calls of other animals, yes, they do. And they often will also make use of one another by spotting potential threats by forming mixed groups. And we often find that vervet monkeys will respond to a number of different other animals' alarm calling. Antelopes such as impala will respond to vervet monkey alarm calling, and then they will all focus on the potential threat. What we also quite often find with vervet monkeys is once that somebody or something gives off an alarm call and they see it, they will all follow it through the trees to bring their attention to the predator and to drive it out of the area. This is a behavior that's known as mobbing behavior, and quite often you'll hear them with a prominent call as if they are chasing the predator. One of the calls that you often hear is a call, which gives them their Zulu name Nkau. We're going to move on and see what else we can find. So as we continue our walk, we're going to hand you over to Dean, who is currently bumbling around.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We've decided to move on from those lines. They looked like they were going to get up to too much this morning. So we decided we're going to now move to the western side of the reserve. It's an area where there's open grasslands. Sometimes find buffalo there. Possibly an elephant or even herds. Really good for bird life, especially raptors. Those open areas generate really good thermals. Nice warm day like today. Hoping there'll be a couple out. We'll soon find out. Leopard lover is asking how close are we to the ocean. It's a really cool name, leopard lover. As the crow flies, we are 30 kilometers from the ocean, so not far at all. The thickest areas. Which is actually built on ancient coastal dunes. And obviously now as the ocean receded over millions of years, it's left these pockets of forest, sand forest. But yeah, to answer your question, as the crow flies, we are more or less 30 kilometers.
Good morning and welcome back. Just as we continued our walk, we noticed that there was 2 buffalo that came to drink, and soon it was joined by a third. At the moment, while we are looking at them, they all seem to be male, and we can very easily identify bulls from females by looking at their horns. We'll see that there's a solid mass of horn which meets in the center of the head, where that of a female is slightly separated. And if you're still not sure, you can always look underneath the bonnet, as the bulls have a fairly large scrotum. And they're also much larger than the females and much more bulky. These are possibly bulls that broken away from a large breeding herd and has taken some time out to recover and to rest before they might go back into those breeding herds to try and compete. We've also noticed that there's a number of oxpeckers sitting on them, busy feeding off on ticks. And just to come back on that question from earlier on the show, if there's animals and birds that will benefit from one another's behaviors and alarm calls, this is also one of those examples where quite often the oxpeckers will alert the animal of a potential threat in the area. African buffalo is one of my favorite animals to find on foot. They can be quite temperamental. However, if you provide a safe amount of distance from them and you are in a safe position where you can view them from, you can really enjoy seeing what they're getting up to. And quite often when they're totally unaware of you, that's when you learn the most out of their behavior. Unlike when you're in a vehicle, where they tend to be more focused on the vehicle that is present. So these large buffalo bulls, they will often come and drink They'll also often spend a lot more time to wallow, especially the older males. And it seems there is some form of social significance in it, that the more dominant and older bulls will spend more time over wallowing compared to other group members. It's also interesting that they urinate in the mud and that the scent of the urine will also impregnate on the coat. I was recently asked if they are territorial, and the answer to this is no. They tend to walk fairly large areas, and quite often within 100 or so square kilometers that they might move. And this is due to the response of food availability, water availability, and the movement within these groups will generally be led by a number of males or females, which is known as pathfinders. Seems as if there's a fourth buffalo that's joining us from the back there, and it seems as if two of these bulls want to match up a little bit of strength. However, the bull towards the right-hand side seems to be much bigger. I've seen these guys fighting with one another where they actually draw blood. And it's also quite fascinating to see how much impact they can handle, if you can think of it, when these bulls are in full fight and they meet head-on in a fight, that they are running at one another at some 40 kilometers per hour. That is a lot of kinetic energy that has been transferred. It's also said that they can toss one another into mid-air. To come back to Nikki's question with regards to what is the value of wallowing, firstly, wallowing also cools themselves down by wallowing either in shallow water or trying to get mud on them. And it also helps to create a protective barrier against biting insects, such as certain species of biting flies. I've on a few occasions followed big herds of buffalo where there's a dark cloud following them as flies are following them, and these flies are quite often after moisture and in some species after blood, and they can create quite a painful bite. If it's on a human skin, however, with a buffalo, I'm sure it doesn't really bother them so much. It seems that our buffalo is now moving off, and at least one of them is looking like if it's starting to have a little bit of a snack again. We're going to reposition ourselves and see what our buffalo is getting up to, and in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Dean.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Just like JP is having a look what those buffalo are getting up to. We are also buffalo. We're going to see if we can find them. I also mentioned how it's an open grassland area, so sometimes find raptors, birds of prey. You'll also notice how I was talking earlier this morning. Our Phinda's got so many different biomes, 7 in fact, and those of you that were watching from this morning, you'll see how I think it was where we were earlier, especially with those drainage lines and all of that, how it starts to open on the western side of the reserve. It really is like you've now driven to a completely different game reserve. See how the hill's starting to roll, and then it drops out into an open sort of grassy plateau area. Lisa's asking, do the animals also roam between the game reserves? They certainly do. They'll obviously move to areas that they prefer. But for example, the elephants, so generally the larger elephant herds will stick up in the north, and once we have a bit of rain here in the south, it's quite amazing actually. Those herds will all come south, generally come south, and the male elephant bulls are scattered all over, to be honest. Excuse all the cars driving past. We're on one of the more main roads. It's just a little bit quicker to get to the western side. And we'll be off the beaten path a little bit. Crossing Otter, Zuka East, crossing Zuka West, number, Phinda Station, Zuka West.
Sabi, third station.
Thanks, Subu. Crossing in as a third, Phinda Station, Zuka West. You'll see now as we drive along this drainage line here off to our right, we were talking about it a little bit yesterday with the fever trees sticking to these water courses and wet areas. And it's quite cool to see how, if you look from far, you can actually see how the fever trees mark out the waterways.
Good morning and welcome back. We tried to follow up on our buffalo. Unfortunately, they started moving away from the dam. But in the meanwhile, we discovered this interesting little nest that we have over here. This little tunnel can go up to 1 meter in depth. So this has been created by a kingfisher. So quite often when we are looking at nest holes of birds in sandbanks, these can either be made by kingfishers or by birds such as bee-eaters. However, the majority of all the bee-eaters are social breeding birds, and there would have been a number of different nest holes in this embankment. Quite often what we will also find when these are active is large streaks of white uric acid that will be streaking down the side, as that these nest holes are the excreta that the bird produces. So interesting, as unlike mammals which produce urea, birds will produce uric acid, which is much more concentrated and often can be seen as white little streaks. The possibility that this might have been a pied kingfisher, it could also have been brown-hooded kingfisher, and which we both see quite often at the dam. We're going to continue and go and see what else we can go and find. Over the last few days, there was a number of different animals that we saw at this dam on a quite a regular basis. Some of these are giraffes, as well as buffalo and a number of other antelope species. Good morning, Lisa, and welcome to the show. And to ask your question, a snake can climb into any hole if it really wants to, and that's quite often why I'm very cautious about putting my fingers down little holes in the burrows, looking for things. As I have found snakes in a number of different cavities. These might be natural rot holes in the side of trees, and sometimes even in between man-made things. That's also one of the reasons why I always keep my bag closed when camping, because there's always a chance that they can come through a small little hole and make themselves at home somewhere. I just want to point out the giraffe where it was drinking yesterday afternoon. And if you look over here, once again, we've got that incredibly long track, which can measure up to some 20 centimeters. As a giraffe has a even-toed ungulate, an animal that walks on the tip of its toe with an even number of toes, unlike rhinos and zebras, which has an uneven number of toes. We can see the clear split in the middle. And one of the classic telltale signs over here in the front of a giraffe's track is the raised little mound of soil which forms. These feet can also be very effectively be used as weapons. And on one of the previous editions, I might have mentioned where I witnessed a giraffe killing a lion a few years ago. So one of the young males in this group of 9 lions, which took on the giraffe, got a serious blow to the head. The injury he sustained killed him within a few hours. At first, he was concussed and lied on the ground, convulsing. And eventually, by the time that we got to see him again, the next day, we found his carcass close by towards where the giraffe was eventually killed by the remainder of a group. Some of the other telltale signs of animals that has been close by to the water body is also the track of elephant, which came to drink over here. The track that we see over here is a hind track. It's much more oblong in length compared to the rounded appearance of a front foot, which carries the majority of the weight of the animal. We also can see over here there's the remains of elephant dung that has been dropped as the elephant came to drink. They don't really seem to fuss themselves about where they go to a toilet, even if it's right next to the side of a water body. When we do look at the dung of elephant, we can see that there's quite a few different plant materials inside here, as they eat a wide range of different plants. We can see some sticks over here from twigs. We can also sometimes find leaf material. And when there's a sufficient amount of fruit in the fruiting season, which is normally in the summer months, we'll also notice that there's marula seeds, jackalberry fruits, and a number of other fruits which we'll find inside there. One of my favorite things to do with this is to dry this out and to burn it. It actually has a very pleasant smell, and it also assists with chasing away mosquitoes from around a campfire. Historically, dry dung was also used for carrying a coal, where the coal would be put into the center of the mass of dung, and it will slowly smolder. We're going to continue and see which other animals have been drinking here throughout the evening, and in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to the other teams.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
want to see, there's a very good place. I want to see if we can get good signal from there. That's where I'd like to go.
Welcome to dawn in the African bush.
How cool is this? Can you believe it?
Those cubs are now only 10 feet from us. Unbelievable.
Elephants chasing wild dogs chasing elephants. Pandemonium!
Watching how WildEarth has grown since 2007 has been truly remarkable. On the 27th of April this year, WildEarth will be turning 14, and we would love to hear from you. Please send us your own special birthday message, which we can share with the rest of the WildEarth family. Maybe you can tell us why you started watching WildEarth, what WildEarth means to you, or you could just send us a very happy birthday. Don't forget, when you want to film yourself, to hold your phone sideways to get the best angle. When you are ready, you can email your videos through to birthday@wildearth.tv.
I love being a cam-up for WildEarth. The animals coming right up close to you, especially like lions. Sometimes you get nervous, but you have to go with the flow. My favorite animal to film is the elephant because of how big it is. But when it's really up close to you, it's one animal that you would say, I really respect you.
Good morning and welcome back. As we walked away from the dam after looking at the elephant dung and the fresh track where it drank, we could see where it walked up to this area right over here. There's a number of interesting things that you can see, and this is where the trunk has actually been dragged on the ground in a process of gathering dust. So quite often after that they have had a mud bath or have wallowed, they quite often throw the dust directly onto their body to further create a caking layer to prevent insects from biting them and to assist with the cooling down. This has definitely happened yesterday, as we can see over here, the tracks of a nocturnal bird, which is known as a water thickney, that has walked over the trunk. And then we also notice that there's a dove that walked over here, which is a day active species. And we also find a hyena track that has walked over where the elephants have dust bathed. But in the meanwhile, I'm just going to pan you back towards the dam, as I've noticed that there's some antelope as well as a giraffe coming in to come and drink. Once again, the giraffe is incredibly cautious about coming to the water because it knows how vulnerable it is when it comes to drink. Because when your head is down and you can't see what's going on around you, the chances of being caught off guard by a lion is fairly big. As we mentioned earlier in our little story about a segment about where lions did catch a giraffe, they're often very cautious of catching a giraffe. And one of the things that they do is quite often chase a giraffe into rocky areas where they can trip and slip very easily. There are other behavior that we find within the park, such as Kruger National Park. That's where they'll deliberately chase them onto tar roads, knowing that they can possibly lose their footing and slip on the tar road surface, which makes it way more safer to bring down a giraffe. We're just going to be quiet for a short while and just allow you to enjoy the beauty of a giraffe drinking. Good morning, Emma, and welcome to the show. And with regards to your question, what is the function of the horns? It is said that it's believed to be protect the skull when they do come up and potentially bump their heads against a branch. Meanwhile, we're going to continue watching our beautiful giraffe drinking and hand you over to Dean.
Welcome back everyone to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. So just like JP, we've also found some plains game, not a giraffe though. This time zebra, some wildebeest, and also impala. You can just hear a wildebeest calf. Sounds like it's calling its mom, giving that contact call. There's a beautiful impala ram there. Have a look at those horns. Massive. So you'll notice where that impala is actually feeding. You'll see how the grass is a little bit thicker and a little bit greener where it's actually feeding. And then you'll see in and amongst there a dead branch or branches or an old tree there. There you can see one there. So it would have been a branch from one of the trees there. It's actually fallen over. And what that has done has actually stopped the soil erosion and caused almost a congregation of minerals and nutrient-rich soil. And as you can imagine, then the grass in that area would be a lot more nutrient-rich. And that's why that impala is choosing to feed there. A couple more zebras to our right here. See how those, oh, something started that one. I think it was actually each other. They bumped into each other. You'll see how the tails are swashing from left to right. The insects, those biting insects are really irritating them. Every now and then you'll see a shrug of the head. Trying to get rid of them. I always love how the pattern on zebras runs into that mane. And that intricate pattern down the front of the face there, it's almost hypnotizing in a way. See how the black and white run right up into the mane there. Bobby's asking, do all zebra have unique stripe? Yes, they certainly do. You might find a few that are quite similar, but on closer inspection, they are different. So just like a fingerprint, all zebra would have different and unique patterns. A few more in front of us here. And same as the lions that we were with a little bit earlier. Also choosing the side of this mountain here, giving them a nice vantage point. Having a 360 view of the area. A lot of zebra there. You can see, well, one of the theories about the patterns, zebra patterns, is it's difficult for a predator to single out a zebra when they're standing together. And there's quite a good example of how it would work. A couple of them are a really young one standing in front of mom, rubbing up against mom there. You'll notice how there's a few brown patches there. That's the fluff. It's obviously still a very young zebra. It's got that fluff still. It'll start to lose that fluff. Right on top there also, you can see a wildebeest. And to the left of them, a few more wildebeest and also impala. So we were actually on our way to some buffalo. Some buffalo that are off to our right here. And as you can see, these zebra and wildebeest are literally standing on the road we're heading through, or heading on. I think we're going to try and squeeze past these zebra and wildebeest. In the meantime, you're going to head over to JP, who's at the watering hole.
Good morning and welcome back. We're still at Leopard Dam. Our giraffe has just left after he had a drink. It's always amazing how rewarding a little bit of time can be by spending it at a dam and just sitting patiently waiting for animals to come in and out. But in the meanwhile, we've also noticed this foam-like structure. It looks like a massive meringue that's been beaten up at the bottom of this branch. And this has been made by a frog, which is known as a southern foam nest frog. And it's quite strange to see that these nests are still hanging over the water so late in the season. Generally, we find that most of the frog species will breed fairly early when there's a sufficient amount of rain with the onset of the beginning of the rain seasons. And then from there on, they might have a second breeding attempt. It's quite fascinating. I've been watching these frogs in the past where a single female will then be sitting on a branch, and quite often she is attended to by a number of different males that all try and mate with her. As that she's mating and these males are fertilizing the eggs, she's churning up this massive jelly and eggs with her hind legs to create this foam-like structure. Some few weeks later, the tadpoles, which will develop inside there, will then drop towards the water. This is an amazing strategy that they've evolved to prevent that predators will feed on the eggs inside the water, and just gives the tadpole that little bit more of an advantage to survive into adulthood. This is also one of the frog species which we quite often find coming into lodges and in man-made structures, where they often will overwinter on a beam or inside your closet for the whole winter. And then when the summer comes, they will become active again, especially after that it starts raining. And as the rain approaches and the first rain approaches, you quite often hear their cheerful little song as if they're starting to call. I also find it quite fascinating that frogs have a number of different calls that they will use for a number of different reasons. And one of these calls which they will produce is an advertisement call to attract females. And quite often we'll find that stronger calling males will be calling from a specific point, where weaker males will quite often sit close by up to them and wait for these males to come to the stronger calling males. They'll intercept them, mate them, and cheat the stronger calling males out of a potential date. We're going to start moving on and see what else we can go and find.
Welcome back everyone to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Just now headed down from the top of that mountain, and straight in front of us over there are the buffalo we've been looking for. Hoping it's going to be a road that's close enough to them for us to get a good view. You'll notice now how it's an open grassland area. I was talking about it earlier. On the western side of the reserve is these open rolling hills, these grasslands. And this is exactly what I was talking about. We're starting to see signs of where these buffalo were, possibly this morning and even last night. As we drive, you'll see how the grass has been pushed over, and even some areas, you can see some areas that might be a little bit flat. That's where the buffalo have moved through here, down and off to where they are now. Kelly's asking, what is the largest herd of buffalo I've ever seen? Would probably be in northern Botswana, in the Chobe National Park. So it's difficult to say, but the buffalo herd pretty much surrounded us, and I think there were upwards of 150, 200. Maybe even up to like 300 buffalo that I could see. It could have stretched a bit further than what I could see, obviously. Possibly even more, but from what I could see, about 200. Yeah, it's a good example of what I was talking about earlier. Let's see how all the grass is flat here. This might have been where the buffalo were actually lying last night, and they're now moving off to our left. So those buffalo were off to our right of here. Should be somewhere over here. There they are. Right over there. Let's see if there's a road that cuts off right and we can get a bit closer. Let me see if we can get over here. Just over here. There they are. Oliver's asking, what is the best thing to me about buffalo, or I assume sort of what they do? I would probably say the herd their best sense. So buffaloes, Oliver, their best sense, I would say, is probably their sense of smell. They've got really, really good sense of smell, but it is quite difficult to say because their hearing's also exceptional and their eyesight. But generally, from what I've experienced with buffalo, they often smell you before you see them or they see you. So I would say, yeah, That would be their best sense. I've noticed when they do notice you or notice something, you might find they'll lift their heads, and they're just trying to get a good smell of what's in the area, what might be coming a bit closer. Even now, you'll see we're obviously now downwind, but even then you'll be amazed by how your scent carries. And if they were to pick up a little bit of our scent, normally the first thing they do is lift their head and try and get a better smell, and also then try and see if they can see what it is they're smelling. And amongst the herd, you'll see a couple females. They've got those horns, both male and female have got those horns on the top of their heads, called bosses. But with the males, like the one that we are now, you'll notice how thick and wide that boss is. They've got a lot bigger boss than the females. That's a quick way to tell. And there's a female there, a couple of females and a male there. You can see the difference quite nicely over there. Very cool to see.
Nestled on the banks of one of the largest lakes in the Sabi sands lies an award-winning game lodge called Tswalu. Many of you will have been on safari here virtually with WildEarth, but now we are offering you the chance to see it for yourself in person. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the end of April, and you and a friend could win 3 nights to this luxury lodge. In addition to the unforgettable safaris, you can unwind on the deck, relax in the pool, and even savor the various bush dining experiences. Tswalu's holistic approach to hospitality, with specific emphasis on conservation, will leave you with the very best memories of the African wild. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa, day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. Have a look at those mountains in the background there. They seem to go on forever. Absolutely stunning. There's more and more of these rolling hills and open grasslands. mountains forming part of the Lubombo mountain range. Really, really cool area. It's quite deceiving actually as you look over the grasslands. You would think that grass is quite short. But as we join up with these buffalo now, you'll notice it comes up to their shoulder height. So at least 1.5 meters high the grass is. So it looked like these buffalo were lying down last night just off to our right. And they've woken up earlier this morning and moved off and carried on feeding as they've moved across here. I'm sure at some point they will be going for a drink in one of the drainage lines. You sometimes find little mud wallows and pools of water in these drainage lines and the bottom of these catchment areas. So as the day warms up, that's most likely where they would head. Just like the zebra and the wildebeest, these insects, these biting insects, irritating them. There's an oxpecker, a red-billed oxpecker on the back of that buffalo, giving those buffalo a hand with those ticks and parasites. You'll notice how there's a couple of cows there and the younger one's in the middle. Jelly's asking, do other animals travel with buffalo for protection? I think in the same way zebra and giraffe and impala will stick together, you might find the same with buffalo. So zebra, wildebeest might be in the vicinity of the buffalo. The more eyes, the better. So in that sense, I suppose they do stick closer to each other, but it's a bit of a mutual relationship. They all keep an eye out for each other. Buffalo are quite fortunate in the sense that they do move around in large herds. So they've already got a fair amount of eyes to look out for each other. I think what we're going to do, we're going to carry on down this road. It looks like they're moving off into that thick area at the bottom of this valley here. I'm hoping they're going to find some water, and we can join up with them at the bottom. In the meantime, you're over to join JP on his bushwalk.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. As we've been walking around, we've been noticing a number of beautiful trees, and this tree that we see over here on my side is known as a Leadwood, which is one of my favorite trees in the Lowveld. It's fairly easy identifiable by the square-shaped bark, the grey coloration of the colour of the bark, and we can also see that there's some animals that have been rubbing over here in the past. At the height, we can determine that this was elephant. Now, this tree is also an incredibly long-lived tree, and they can get well over 1,000 years of age. And it is also said once that these trees die, that it can take between 75 and 100 years for them to eventually decay. They're also virtually termite resistant, and this is one of the reasons why their wood was heavily exploited in the early parts of the previous century, both for the use of railway sleepers and for the making of mined props. These days, they are a protected species, and it's quite hard to come by a piece of this wood. And a lot of furniture companies specifically would like to make use of it, as it makes some of the most beautiful furniture. And it lasts incredibly long. One of the downfalls of it being weighing at 1,000 kilograms per cubic square meter, it makes it quite cumbersome and difficult to work with, and it also is often blunts the implements that they use. Some of the fascinating things that I do find about this tree is that the ash of a tree can often be used as an alternative to toothpaste. And what you can do is once you collect the ash, you simply put your finger in the ash and then rub it onto your teeth to clean them. We also see that when the tree is quite often damaged, that it will exude a sap, which is a resin that is there to protect the tree against insect infestation and bacterial infections. That specific sap or resin is then also often collected by sand hunters, which uses it as a form of energy in terms of food in areas where there's a limited number of things to eat. You can also take the leaves of this tree, you can burn it when it's dry and use it for treating chest ailments by inhaling the smoke. Further, the flowers are also quite often used for making a cough mixture, which will help you to get rid of the excess phlegm after you've had your cold. We're going to move on and go and see what else we can find.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We've managed to get a bit closer to these buffalo. They've slowly now moved across this open area. And like I mentioned earlier, I think they're going to go down for a drink in the bottom of that valley there, or that drainage line. Jeez, have a look at that, the boss on that male. See all the bugs on that are irritating it, flicking its ear on. A relatively youngish male. You'll notice the older males will actually have a lot more nicks and dents in that boss, and it'll be quite badly pitted away. Get an idea of how thick that boss is actually. Lily Pants asked a really good question there. She's asking, what is the lifespan of buffaloes? Generally live to up about 20 years in the wild, and sometimes up to about 26 in captivity. Quite in terms of wild animals, quite a long lifespan. The older bulls will start to move out of the herds at about between 12 and maybe 14. They'll start to move out of the herds and become a lot more solitary. You might have heard the term Dugger Boys. That's referring to those older bulls that have been kicked out of the the herd or are no longer able to keep up with them and they go on their own. There's one of the cows there, so you can see now how that boss is a lot smaller than the males. You can also see, have a look on the side of the body there, you'll see those pieces of dark material, and along the neck there's some ticks there, but those dark pieces there are dried up mud, or is dried up mud rather, and that could have been from yesterday, or even, you know, on a hot day like today, could have been earlier this morning. A couple of big bulls walking past in front of us now. The young bull there. Just keeping an eye on us. Just crossing the road, having a look, and then going on. You might get a glimpse of some of the younger calves as they move across here. Obviously sticking close to mom, but also in the middle of this herd, so they'll be safest and won't be able to be singled out by predators if they were to try and catch one of these younger calves. Starting to pick up the pace a little bit, these buffalo. Minnie's asking a really cool question. What do buffaloes do when they're faced by predators? So the first thing they'll probably do is get the younger ones into the center of the herd, and they'll cluster together so that there isn't one that's actually singled out. And then they would face directly whatever predator is coming for them. They generally stand their ground if something like a lion was to come for them. And even I've seen it before where they would actually chase the lions off. So they would run after the lions and chase them out of the area. I've seen here in Phinda 3 or 4 cows actually chase a male lion away. Male lions were lying at a watering hole, and the buffalo came down to drink, and they were having none of it. They chased the lion right away.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We at the moment just continuing a walk down the road and see what we can find, if there's any fresh tracks or signs of animals coming in. At the moment, we're following a drainage line that's in the distance over here, which is often used by both buffalo and elephant. And as it's potentially heating up now, these animals might start moving towards water. So we're just going to continue and see what we can find. In the meanwhile, we just discovered a giraffe that's watching us. We're just going to sit and watch him at the moment. Let's see what he gets up to. Good morning, Jesse, and welcome to the show. The biggest threat to a giraffe would be definitely lion. However, they stand their ground quite well against them. Although in recent years I've also learned that quite often that young giraffe can be taken by leopard. And there was a specific individual in one of the reserves which was known to take young giraffe as well as young buffalo, which is quite a phenomenal feat for a leopard to take such a large animal. Generally they tend to focus on medium-sized prey animals. At the moment, it seems that he's busy ruminating and re-chewing the cud of the food that he's already eaten. So quite often we find with giraffe that they hold the record as being the ruminant with the longest gestation period as well as the largest ruminant on the planet. So these animals have a complex four-chambered stomach which enables them to gain the maximum nutrition from their food. So once they've eaten the food for the first time, it's swallowed into the first stomach chamber, which acts as a gravity-specific chamber with the coarser materials floating to the top. What is also quite interesting is that the inner parts of the stomach of a giraffe has got tiny little finger-like protrusions, which actually increases the absorption area, enabling it to even gain more nutrition out of their food compared to animals with a similar sized stomach. We also notice that the males quite often will just feed and move on, compared to the females, which are a little bit more picky about what they eat. This is generally because they look for higher quality foods, which might boost them to get into estrus. The individual that we're looking at the moment is a male. In the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Dean, who's currently bumbling around in Phinda.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We're busy making our way around to the other side of that drainage line where it looked like the buffalo were heading. Just trying to navigate a path into that drainage line. It's just extremely thick over here. And I'm not sure if there's actually going to be a road into there. We can still just see them. I just want to turn us around up front here. Let's see if we can get a view of the top of these worry thickets over here. Let's have a look up here. There they are, just feeding, moving through that grass. We are now on the far side of that area, that drainage line. Looks like they slow down. You know, did seem at one point they were moving quite quickly into that thicker area. Bo, you're asking, do buffalo stay in the same herd forever? They do, indeed. At least the females do for their whole lives. Where I was talking earlier about the males, the older males will, at around 12, 13, when they get really old and are no longer able to keep up with the herds, they'll move out and be quite solitary. I'm not sure if you've heard of the term Duggar boys. Well, that's referring to those older buffalo bulls. But the females will stick with the herds for their whole lives. You might often also find bachelor herds of buffaloes where you'd have just males. You sometimes see it, especially this time of year with impalas going into that breeding season, their rutting season, where you just find a small herd of males. Sometimes buffalo do the same, forming those bachelor herds. I've also just spotted straight in front of us a couple giraffes. So just like JP, we've also found some giraffes. There's actually a couple buffaloes below them. There's at least 6 giraffes that I can see. Journey of giraffes is the collective term for them as they're moving, and a tower if they are standing still. Ingrid's asking, do the females only mate with the dominant male? Generally, yeah, that's how it would work. And the males would then compete to see who's the more dominant one. And then they would have almost the breeding rights to the females. It normally runs on a size basis, so the larger male, more dominant male would be the one that would be breeding. I'm sure some of the viewers have seen how giraffes will size up each other and actually get quite physical in what we call necking, when they swing their heads around and try and actually knock each other's legs out. That tends to be only when it gets a little bit more aggressive. And you often find they'll just stand next to each other, especially the younger males. It's not too serious. And just by standing next to each other, one would then be a little bit more submissive than the other, and that would sort that out. But if that doesn't, then it gets a bit more physical, and they will start swinging each other's necks and trying to hit each other with those horns on the top there called ossicles. And it can actually get quite serious. You can actually hear the thump from quite a while away. But yeah, that would just be to establish a hierarchy and to figure out who is the more dominant male. Oh, something startled that one. I don't think it's something of too much interest. I know there was some buffalo moving through that area also. They do seem to be staring off into one direction. Often if there is a predator, giraffes will stare in that direction and even actually move a bit closer. It looks like these guys have actually stopped doing that and they're carrying on feeding, so I don't think it's anything like a predator. You'll notice how these giraffe are feeding right at the top of the trees. The leaves right at the top being the most nutrient rich and the freshest of the leaves, so that's what they're going for. I think what we're going to do is carry on to our right to the top of this hill and see what else we come across. For now, you're going to head over to JP, who's managed to find some more tracks.
Good morning and welcome back to Pridelands. We've continued towards another little pan to go and see what we can find. On the way over there, we've found the tracks of a honey badger, which is right over here. Now, honey badgers is one of my favorite animals, and what makes them my favorite animal is that they have such immense amount of courage, as well as a will to always push through and to resolve and solve challenges that comes over their way. Some of you might actually know that they're also known to attack even lion when lions do get close to them. Sometimes the lion gets the upper hand, however the honey badger sits loose in its skin and can turn around and direct a bite at a lion, and hopefully it will release it. Also, if biting doesn't work, they've got immensely large claws which they can use as defensive weapons. And as a last resort, they can use the contents of their anal gland, which does not smell so nice. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to show you the little track that's over here. So here we find that there's a main part of a pad, which is split into two, and then a large part over here. And then over here, we find very long sausage-shaped toes, unlike that of a porcupine, which has got round toes. It doesn't mark very well, but we can see as the day is heated up and the soil started crumbling, that there's faint nail marks over here, and these nail marks is precisely at the same length away from the toe as if the toe is long. These long nails are also used quite often for digging open the side of beehives, and as well to dig for the dung balls of dung beetles, where they will feed on the inside of feed on the grub that's inside that dung ball. This is for me always a special animal to find, and hopefully we'll be able to see him one of these evenings on one of the drives. We're going to continue down towards our little pan and go and see what we can find. Good morning, Zachariah, and welcome to the show. The prey or chosen prey animals that they will take is anything from the size of mice and other small rodents. They're also known to take eggs. They will also even take tortoises and terrapins. I once witnessed one dragging a terrapin out of a mud wallow and then eating it. I can't think that it must be one of the most tasteful meals, because the terrapins quite often stink, and they will also use chemical defense in their favor by emptying the contents of a cloaca onto you if you try and handle them. We're going to continue down this little footpath over here and go and see what is at the pan. In the meanwhile, we're handing you over to one of the other teams who's still out there on a bumble.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. We have just left that herd of buffalo and tower of giraffe. They're all standing still, so a tower and not a journey. We're just driving along this road here. It's quite a good area for both black and white rhino. With the grass being quite long, it does make it a little bit tricky. Sometimes all you'll get is a flick of an ear when you try and look for a rhino in this area. We've been on a really good roll this morning. Started off with the hyena, elephant, buffalo, lion, and obviously all the plains game. So we figured, let's see if we can find a rhino. We are now coming up to the very southern end of the reserve. I just want to have a quick scan. Just driving along this drainage line here. Really good place for all animals that might be going for a drink. Yvette, you're saying what a beautiful scene, and you're 100% right. It is. It really is. Quite different from where we were this morning. It is stunning. It always amazes me how, with the different habitats and areas you go to, the different animals you find, different birds, and different plains game. It's quite interesting. We get the helmeted guinea fowl quite a lot on this side of the mountain, and we're on the other side, closer to the lodge, you get the crested guinea fowl a lot more. It's amazing how just a couple kilometers you can get such a difference. So I think we're going to look for a road that'll cut off to our left and make a bit of a loop round. I did see a couple of big buffaloes on the top of the mountain there, closer to those giraffe that we were just with. Let's see if we can join up with them again. As you can see, it's almost as if we're driving on top of the there's a black widow, golden orb spider. There's another one here. We've actually come across a couple of their webs here. We just managed to save this web. And I was also going to say these roads are not driven too often. Hence the reason there's these spider webs right across the road. There's actually a couple of golden orb spiders. Oh, there's at least one inside the vehicle at the moment. But yeah, beautiful spider right across. Jeez, look at those colours. They make these beautiful webs right across the road. Super strong also. Looks like we startled him a bit. He probably will, or she rather, it's the female, the male being a lot smaller. Probably head back to the centre of the web again. It looked like it had a moth or something in the middle there. I think we're going to try and navigate away around this web so we don't break it.
On the 27th of April, WildEarth will be turning 14 years old, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And to celebrate, we will be finishing the beautiful book that we started last year that looks at the history so far. But we do need you to be part of it. Please submit your most memorable sighting, or what WildEarth means to you, or even just your name and a comment to be included inside the book. Head over to the website to add your name and reserve your copy. And a big thank you to all of you who have contributed to the book so far.
Staying one step ahead is the key to survival out in the African wild. And now you can stay in front of the pack with a WildEarth weekly newsletter. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer and you will get exclusive behind-the-scenes stories about your favorite guides and camera operators. Information about our upcoming plans and projects will be delivered to your inbox every week before anyone else. And you can hone your guiding skills by taking part in our Identify Me nature quizzes. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
What are you looking at, man? That's its gangster face. It has the manners of a common variety vagabond. Look at it, chewing with its mouth open like that.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond, Phinda Private Game Reserve. We are still with these golden orb, or banded-legged golden orb web spiders. This is actually a different one to one we had earlier. The one we had earlier that was straight in front of us is actually dropped below the bonnet or the bull bar of the vehicle, and there's another one, a smaller one to our right. Oh yeah, no, we're trying to figure out a way how to get around here, and then we noticed there was another one just over here. This one being a little bit smaller. So quite appropriately named banded-legged. You can see those stripes on the legs. And also then got those black and yellow markings, and a little difficult to tell, but it's got that brown carapace with little very fine brown hairs or sorry, more silvery hairs. So quite similar to the black-legged golden orb spider and the red-legged. All three obviously named based on their leg colour. But as you can see, we're pretty much surrounded here. We've got the one in the front here and another one here. We're just going to have to try and figure out a way to get around these two spiders. We might actually end up going around there. There, the other one that we were talking about earlier has actually just come up. And just below it there, you can see it's caught a little moth. Might head down to that little moth. Might actually wrap it up into a little silk ball. But for now, thank you very much, all the viewers that joined us this morning. It's been quite an action-packed morning. And we look forward to seeing you this afternoon for your live safari in the bush.